Good evening, everyone, and welcome, or good morning, or good day. Excuse me. I think I always say good evening for some reason. Um,
Wherever you
but
might be.
yeah, wherever you might be, we'll cater for all today. Welcome once again to another one of our podcast episodes, The Three Wise Potatoes. We have with us once again the lovely duo of Mr. Dean and Mr. Goodge. How are both of you this evening?
Aw, we're good. Well, I'm good.
I'm cold.
Yes, as you've been saying, yes, yes. It is the depths of winter. So,
Chillos.
yeah,
Nice, chilling in bed weather.
I suppose,
Yes,
yeah, that as
very
well.
much
I
so.
mean, as long as you don't have a tornado falling on your head,
Hey.
as our people
Our friends
from
in friends in
Durban.
Phoenix.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Durban, yeah, yeah. That was quite scary.
Yeah, that was hectic.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Tongaat, which is like, what, 10, 15 k's away from Phoenix.
yeah,
And never in my entire childhood did we ever see anything remotely close to that.
yeah.
So to know that the tornado hit Phoenix, which is not far from where I grew up, that's a little strange. It's definitely out of the ordinary.
It's
Mm.
hectic weather phenomenon to have in South Africa, actually.
Yeah, I
We
Not
were
know.
very
talking
common.
about it on a work trip. Like, I was there in KZN yesterday, but we were saying Joburg a couple of weeks ago had an earthquake.
Mm,
Cape Town last week was flooding
mm.
and is still recovering from the floods. And then, on Tuesday, there was a tornado in Durban. It's, South Africa's got very stable weather usually, not this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we do have tornadoes in South Africa. It's just in those areas that are not heavily populated. But this is like
Yeah, it's
in
like
the middle
a
of it.
town where there's three people and a chicken, so no one cares. But like in Phoenix, where there's a ton of people, yo,
And some chickens.
yeah, actually, they have chickens too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but certainly unusual. But I mean, I've checked in with a lot of people that I knew in the areas, and they're all okay, and
Hmm.
quite a bit of damage, a few loss of life as well. But that's still not good. But yeah,
Yeah.
not 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 as bad as it was before. But Durban's not catching a break, eh? With everything that's happening.
No.
No.
But
Yeah, they're
it's a
having
lot.
a tough time.
It's a lot to do with the infrastructure as well. I mean, if your infrastructure is sound, then a little bit of changes can like be stabilized quickly. But if the
Mm.
Yeah.
infrastructure is not solid, then small changes really have a big ripple effect.
Yeah. True.
Well, this evening, I guess the topic, what I wanted to do is this is going to kick off a series of elements that exist within us, right? So it might be like a series of casts that we do, things that we need to embrace and work in unison with.
Mm.
There are varying degrees of opinions on all of these things as well. And the first one is about the softness that is within us all. And that's one of the first elements that I wanted to talk about. Now, often when we talk about softness, we refer to it as parts of us that's gentle and simple and kind and all of that.
Mm.
You know, what is the softness within to you, and what else does it describe, or what other words can we use to describe it?
Good.
Um, yeah, so um, I think you hit on a good note there, like the kindness. But I really think that empathy and apathy have like a big part to play there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it stems from those areas, you know. Um, and I'm not the most empathetic person in the world, but
Mm.
I think
I
that
disagree.
a lot of I also thought so, but I mean, when I hang around people that are very that have a high degree of empathy, I do notice the difference. I think it just comes down to I'm just a little bit more observant, so I can
Hmm.
put myself in other people's shoes through that point of view. But and I like think it through as well. But like those levels of empathy and things like that, they really have a big part to play in the level of kindness you show, the level of patience, the peace within you, the the level of comfort you bring to others. That sort of softness is the way I see it. I think, um, but also the willingness to have patience with everything around you. You know.
I love the way you describe that
Mm.
when you talk about the level of comfort you bring to others.
Mm,
That's such a that's such a nice way of saying it. I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you're saying there. It's that softness that you talk about. I think the stronger you become, the more responsibility you have to be gentle with others.
mm,
Um,
definitely.
and I think that's what it is. It's that ability to be gentle.
Mm, yeah. I like that you say the stronger you become. It's like
Yes.
Mm.
it's on you to then
Yeah.
be patient with people. Um, it's like the thing of I think you hit the nail like pretty much smack on the head because you know all those people that are like pros at whatever they do and like really
Mm.
good and like you find that if you deal with those kinds of people, they're honestly some of the nicest people because they've
Yeah.
been through so many hardships to get to where they are. They know that the road is difficult.
And they know that their strength is so immense that they could
Yeah,
crush people without even realizing it.
yeah,
So they've got to be hyper conscious of how they
mm,
interact and things like that. So yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
there's a saying. There's a saying. The kindest of hearts have been through the most terrible hurts,
Mm,
as an example, right?
mm,
So
it's very
it's
true.
it speaks to what you kind of brought up there.
mm,
And I like that what Guj mentioned as well. It almost you almost describe as an aura of um, goodness that you bring to your surrounds and to the people around you as well. You know, it's
mm,
just that inner energy, that inner aura of goodness. Um, now, I know that as well. Like people kind of describe it as weak. You know, it's viewed as something weak and not to be engaged with.
mm.
Is that something? I mean, it's a it's an opinion that we see often,
I'm
right?
sorry, I can't help but laugh at
Mm.
something like that.
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean, I know
it's
it's not a laughing matter,
I
but
think
it's ridiculous.
Dean is laughing because you know it's coming from that side. I think it's honestly quite the opposite, um,
Mm.
and that's why I think Dean is laughing
Yeah.
because to have that level of compassion and
Yeah.
kindness, you must really have strength over and above what people are expecting.
It's like some of the most immensely gifted, talented, powerful people, like titans, are the kindest.
Mm,
And it's like oh, I think anyone who views kindness as a weakness is reacting because they can't bring themselves to be that. It's an inadequacy in themselves that they identify and they're lashing out.
mm,
That's what I think it is. But I mean, if I just look at the people around me, like the kindest people are, typically just the strongest.
mm. But Yash is saying softness, right?
Mm.
But
Yeah.
there's also another side to it in terms of
Yeah.
softness. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's the side of, a person lets other people walk over them, or um, someone who doesn't value themselves enough or doesn't have confidence, right? And if we're talking about softness from that point of view, it's a softness of lack of confidence, if I can
See,
say
I mean,
when we
that.
there's
talk
a.
about softness, I don't actually think of it that way, but I hear
Yeah,
what you're
no, no,
saying.
yeah.
Mm.
Initially
You're,
I thought of it the same way you did, right? But
Mm.
while you were saying it, I was like, there's another side of softness that, like Yash brought it up, when he said, is it weakness? And that
Yeah.
brought up in my mind to say, listen, there is a side of quote unquote softness that is not linked to inner strength, but linked to
No.
lack of confidence or lack of
Correct.
self belief or,
Yep.
lack of strength.
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
Like, we don't have to use the word weakness, but we can say there's just a lack of strength there. Like, you
yeah,
allow too much.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's isn't then that about like Prush mentioned, is it's lack of self confidence, lack of um, you just feel that you can't stand up to people. You want to be accommodating to them, even.
Mm,
Um, you don't want to speak up for yourself.
mm,
You just follow the status quo. That's how it's
mm,
always been. And like Prash mentioned as well, you let people walk all over you.
mm,
Um, it's I think it's a big thing as well,
mm,
in terms of softness, but it's also uh, brings in self worth topics as well,
mm.
because
But
if you don't know
yeah,
what your self worth is, if you don't know how to control your, I guess, bring to your forefront your strength, then you'll always be this weak personality type, as everyone else would describe it. But we don't see it
Yeah.
as that, right? You're not a weak person. It's just that you're unable to bring to the forefront what you really want to say or react to in those situations.
but I'm just thinking about the times in my life where I didn't have the softness that I have now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not to say that I'm a titan like Dean was saying, but as you
I
grow,
think you are.
you develop and you grow, and then you learn that you are more than what you were before, right? And I'm thinking
Mm.
about times in my past where I would let people do things because I was like, okay, lack of confidence, lack of self belief. And
Mm.
I think softness is something that's a little bit different from weakness.
Yeah.
Softness implies
Yeah.
that you have the
Mm.
ability to be soft and be malleable to people, but
Mm.
weakness means you have no power over that command. Um,
Yeah.
and there's two sides to that coin, where softness, like you could be soft and malleable to people around you, make them feel comfortable, but also you could turn it on and say, listen, I don't know what you're saying, please just walk away from me, you know? Whereas people who actually suffer from weakness, right? Not to say weakness is a bad word, but um, they suffer from lack of confidence, lack of self belief. They don't have that ability to say, listen, stop what you're doing, Um,
Yeah.
and that's something that I've noticed that Dean always had this thing within himself. He knows where to like draw the line in the sand. So if someone is um, acting extrusively in his area, even if it's not impacting him, I've seen Dean draw the line, and he's like, you know what? There's the line. You can stay behind it. Um, and it's incredibly powerful to see. And it actually awakens something within everybody that sees it. And you're like, ooh, that's really interesting. That's something that it's admirable.
Can I ask then, how do you, like you mentioned it, it's something awakened. How do you awaken it?
So it comes, I think, based on our discussion so far, to me, it comes from self belief, growth. Knowing who you are is important because when you have that self belief and confidence and knowing who you are, you automatically know what is impinging on your bubble and what isn't.
Mm.
And then you can say, listen, this is not comfortable for me. Um, and you can automatically set your boundaries, set your bubbles, and do things that way. I think I found that works best for me.
Do you know, like we mentioned it in like a few podcasts now. It
Mm-hmm.
seems to be a theme where we talk about recognizing stuff. And if it feels bad, if it feels like it's out of alignment, that
Mm,
tends to be that one silver bullet that you can always rely on. Like if you're if you're being taken advantage of, generally doesn't feel good,
mm,
right? If someone's pushing the boundaries and it's making you unhappy or uncomfortable,
Mm.
that's a very quick way of identifying this is not fair, it's out of alignment. And I think a lot of people in that situation know that it's not fair, they just don't know what to do about it or how to go about fixing it.
for sure.
You
Uh,
know.
well, I think it's also a thing of you don't have to go and find confidence and self belief tomorrow. You just have to,
No, it takes time to build that up.
yeah, you just have to. learn what, like Dean is saying, you have to not focus on your emotions, but when you recognize something doesn't feel right, that's an automatic trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, uh, completely agree.
Mm,
It's also something that needs to be nurtured and protected as well.
mm,
Like, it's not something that's when we talk about everything, all of these elements within us, all of them require attention. All of them require growth. I mean, it follows you on your journey forward. Like, every single element within you needs to grow with you as well. Like, you can't leave like one behind.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I one of the things that I often see people do is they kind of hide those portions of themselves, and tend not
Mm.
to reveal it to the world.
mm,
It's just because of how it's viewed currently in society, and like we touched on earlier, it's not something to be ashamed of or hidden away, in
mm,
my opinion.
mm,
And
No,
but how?
society
Yeah,
desperately needs more kindness.
yeah,
mm.
that's it, and it's sorely lacking it, right? I mean, even
Yeah.
empathy as well. I know Prash mentioned the word empathy
Mm.
really early on. It's just really lacking all of these things.
Yeah.
What are your techniques for nurturing and protecting your inner, your softness, your inner peace, your inner gentleness and kindness?
Mm,
The easiest thing you can do, like bar none,
Mm-hmm.
is surround yourself with people that A, respect the softness and gentleness and practice it themselves. So if you're finding that you're in a situation where people look down on you and take advantage of you and don't appreciate the softness and criticize you for it,
Mm-hmm.
then spend less time with those people.
mm,
Would be the simplest thing I would tell you. Like, hang out with people that are strong and are strong enough to be gentle,
mm,
and it's a very easy way to preserve it in that area. And it's a like attracts like thing, but you also learn how to, like, you pick up stuff from people. Like, I look at the two of you, and you practice the gentleness in different ways to how I would, and I learn from that. And my gentleness then expands and grows because I understand different ways to be gentle.
mm.
I know you mentioned as well. Sorry, Prash.
No,
Before
no,
you
it's
go
fine.
ahead, you mentioned really early on spot something about strength and knowing that the that you can have the strength to
Yeah,
show people
you
that
can
sort
you
of.
can really thrash people, but it
Yes,
means you have to be
Mm,
all the more responsible with how you use that strength.
mm,
correct. Yeah.
definitely.
Sorry, go ahead, good, yeah.
So I my eyes recently opened up to something that was it wasn't unknown to me, but it really brings this topic into the forefront of my mind of kindness and softness and things like that are primarily taught at home, um, and where people develop kindness early on and things like empathy.
Mm.
Because I always thought that empathy was it's not a skill, it's a trait or a characteristic of a human, and
Yeah.
it's not easily developed, if I can put it that way. It's actually very difficult to develop because you have to almost become a different person if you're not very what's the word, empathetic, right?
Yeah.
um, and if you're not, you have to become a different person because it will change your whole life, it changes the way you see everything. And if you are taught this from an early age, you carry it through your life. But if you're a soft person that doesn't naturally have self-confidence, and if you are living in an environment, not even at home, but even at work, or you know your friend environment, like saying you have to surround yourself with good people. If you're in an environment that constantly questions your self-confidence and your self-belief, that can utterly obliterate your softness and your strength. Um,
I mean, that
and
pushes you toward the weakness portion, right?
yeah,
like we alluded to earlier,
yeah,
because
yeah,
you go into a cocoon or a shell.
yeah. And it essentially turns people who have a great level of softness to having a great level of weakness. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
the difference between um, quiet, controlled strength, right, and um, weakness is self confidence and self belief, right?
Mm.
In my opinion, right? But and that difference is made up all, I think, in what Dean said is who you surround yourself with. I could be in an environment that's completely toxic on a daily basis, but if my home, right, which is the rest of my day, for example, is rooted in self belief and self confidence that's amplified by the people around me, then
Yeah.
you can deal with that, you know. But if you deal with that here and then you, for example, you deal with it at work and then you go home, you have to deal with it again, you
Mm.
take a battering, right? So unless you have this unbelievable drive, which not many people do, I mean, you will buckle eventually. Um,
Mm.
you kind of have to, and I'm not saying work is a bad place, but I'm using it as an example. You know,
Yeah.
your work life could be amazing and your home life could be crappy. Um,
Yeah.
so it's all about picking where your comfort zone is and your strength zone is, and then building yourself from there.
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing is, you like we've seen this with potentially with people in our lives, but we've also seen examples within society where people are, like you say, in a toxic environment and they don't know how to necessarily get out. And it's very easy for me to sit here and say, you know what, don't hang out with people that put you down and take advantage of you. Go hang out with people that are respectful and practice boundaries and practice kindness, and that'll come out in you. But some people feel like they can't do that. They feel stuck in the situation. And
Mm,
in these toxic environments, the one thing that's always common is the people that are being toxic towards the quote unquote weak person, they will do everything they can to make that person feel inadequate and make them feel as weak as possible. Because if they feel weak, they'll never feel strong enough to change their environment or their
mm,
situation, and they always feel stuck. And then the person itself will feel like, well, I can't leave because I wouldn't manage on my own. And the
mhm,
truth is, in that current state, no, you probably wouldn't manage on your own. But if you find the strength to, that little bit of strength you need to leave your situation, and you go around and you surround yourself with people that are appreciative of you and respect your boundaries and practice kindness, you then innately grow. So the
mm,
thing that you wouldn't normally be able to manage, that's not an issue anymore because you've become the person that can manage whatever. And the network of support you have around you is much greater than the people that make you feel bad about it.
mm.
What of the people though that don't have anyone? I mean, they who are fearful of just leaving what they have and going out on it alone.
That's
What
another
of
good
them?
one.
Look, that's a very real fear, right?
Mm.
But as horrible as society can be, one thing humanity somehow got right is the kindness of strangers, and it
Mm,
exists.
Mm.
Like, I don't know if everyone has seen it, but like I've seen it, where there are good people, and somehow the good people know how to find people in need. Like,
mm,
they recognize it. And it's probably because the good people have such a developed and protected sense of empathy.
Mm.
So if you go out and you look, eventually you will find people. I mean, I don't know how long it'll take, but eventually you will find people that will be kind to you and respectful of your boundaries and teach you how to practice boundaries, and you will grow. Um,
mm,
Honestly, the hardest thing is just trying to break away from the toxic environment.
mm. Yeah, yeah, you're 100% right. And I think it stems from that feeling element. If you don't feel comfortable in an environment, whether it's at home or work or whatever it is, it doesn't mean you have to just leave that environment. You can set boundaries, right? And tell people, listen, this is what you're doing is not right, right? And automatically, look, it's difficult. It's not easy, but you have to be able to say, do I want this for the rest of my life? Am I willing to accept this for the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, right, then you need to set boundaries and stand up for yourself.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, it's once again, because if you're a different personality type, or I mean, for lack of a better word, a weak personality type,
Mm.
can you be that assertive for yourself though? You know,
There's a way to do it, because
yeah.
if you're someone who's, like a weak personality type, right? And you've been taken advantage for a really long time,
Mm-hmm.
or taken advantage of for a really long time, should I
Mm-hmm.
say. um, you might not have been able to practice strength, but what you have developed is an extraordinary amount of resilience.
Mm.
And
Mm.
if you're resilient, that's one branch away from being strong. You just have to find a way to get there.
I
And
think
then,
maybe it's almost as if, like, you know, as you get closer to the edge of someone pushing you off the edge, sort of thing,
yeah,
and then you just let things go or shout, and you know, an outburst comes up. It's like it's almost as if they need something to trigger them to an extent such that, you know, they finally let loose,
Mm.
or break the mold of what they had in the past.
Mm.
That can be, you know, something as well when they finally call it quits and say no, enough is enough, when they've had enough, like completely had enough.
Mm.
yeah. I mean, obviously, there's got to be a healthy way of doing that, because I mean, we've seen when it goes wrong.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like, it could be very destructive.
Yes, yeah,
Mm.
Like when they say when a person snaps,
yeah.
it could be violent, it could be aggressive, it could
Mm-hmm.
be, like I said, destructive.
Mm.
We hope no one gets to that situation. Unfortunately, people do, but like try and leave your situation before you get there. Like, recognize that you deserve more.
Mm.
That you weren't meant to be walked all over. You were not made, and you were not put on this earth to be somebody's doormat or taken advantage of. You have things that you like, you have things you enjoy, there's things that you want for yourself. It's okay to have all of these dreams and ambitions. And if people tell you it's not okay to have those ambitions, you tell them, go play on the freeway. Because, like, you deserve nice things as well,
Yeah.
and like, leave before you get to the point where you need to snap.
Yeah, 100% right. I couldn't disagree with anything there because um, I take a little bit more of a hard line. My first question is, are you willing to accept this for the rest of your life? And some
Mm.
people are just, they will, right?
They're
And that's a
subservient, right?
that's a
Yeah.
personal choice. And to be honest
Mm.
with you, if you choose that, you know what? It is your life. You have all the ability in the world to choose whatever it is that you want. And if you stay in a situation where you feel like you're being walked all over, then essentially, my friend, you've chosen that, right? And if you don't want to choose that, then, like Dean says, you don't have to snap at people because
Mm.
snapping is not going to help you in any case. It might have some temporary relief, may even give you some strength. But at the end of the day, it's better to just pick what you want and go after that. And
Yeah.
that, I think, is if it means you just leave somebody you've been dating for 5 years or whatever it is, leave somebody that you've known for 10 years behind you just so that you can get peace in your life, it's worth it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Funny you say that. um, anyway, so like I've often wondered, this side of us, if it controls anything in our lives. Like, does it control um, any of our decisions? Does it control
I'm
any
sure
of
it controls
our?
quite a lot if we really look
Yeah,
into it. Sorry,
I
carry
would
on.
Mm,
say like
yeah, yeah.
70% of your life.
Mm. And does the like so then another thing that I've often come across is that, there's obviously, like, there's this dark and light within us, like this whole yin and yang, and we've
Mm.
all discussed it before, right? When we even talked about the masculine and feminine energy within us, right? It's
Mm.
very similar,
Hmm.
um, and we still get that people only use one side of them, and the other side is kind of suppressed to a point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where it kind of has to break free and manifest in other areas. I know we touched on that when we talked about the masculine and
Yeah.
feminine, but is there, why do we stop ourselves from using it more though? Like we know there has to be a balance, but like why does society even stop themselves from using it more? Like,
I
what's
think
preventing us from reaching that full potential of that balance?
I think it's also a thing of how you self-identify, you know?
Mm.
Because people self-identify as I'm either this really strong person or I'm this soft, kind person, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
the minute you self identify as one of those, or whatever you self identify as, some portion of yourself becomes suppressed because you're supposed to be yin and yang and in
Mm-hmm.
balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the minute you identify as something, unless you identify as the thing that sits in between yin and yang, right? Which is like Zen person, right? You essentially picking one side or the other side. And like a lot of the philosophers will say, the minute you self identify as something, you remove all the
Yeah.
possibilities that you could be.
Hmm. I like that actually. And I like that you say we self-identify, and that's so true.
Yeah,
Um,
it's 100% it's self identification.
I
I don't.
agree and I disagree to that because
Mm.
like I think balance means different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
And what might be incredibly certain things that are very masculine that I identify with, like I could also identify with other things that would be traditionally or considered female or
Mm.
feminine. Like the creation aspect is a feminine aspect, and
Mm-hmm.
masculine aspect is, like that stable, sort of unmoving, unyielding thing. I think the balance, it means different things for different people. And just because you identify with something today doesn't mean you must identify with it for the rest of your life. I
Mm.
think part of us understanding and exploring things is the process of identification.
100% I agree with you. 100% I agree
Yeah,
with you.
so I think
But
I
at the,
think
yeah,
it has its place,
yeah,
like I don't
yeah.
think, like for me, I'm quite happy to identify certain things, and as I progress, drop those things and move on to something else, because when I identify to something, I tend to, when I identify with something, I tend to explore it a bit more fully or a bit more wholly, and really delve into it. Whereas if I kind of like don't identify with anything and sort of open myself up to stuff, then it's kind of like you become quite general. Like, you
Mm,
experience things in smaller quantities rather than
mm,
in depth. And for me, I like the depth. So I'll identify with a couple of things and then I'll dive right into it and I'll just sit in there for a little while. And then once I've had my fill, I'll move on to something else.
mm. But that's, you see, what I meant was when you identify as something, right? Say you're saying I identify as today I'm a strong-willed person, right?
Yeah.
Um, you are removing some elements of yourself in terms of, just as an example, today I'm a really strong-willed person. Fear takes a backseat, you know,
No, no, that's
and
all true.
right,
But for me, what I meant was that, like, I'm okay with that limitation because I know the limitation's not permanent.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
mean, you time box in that space. I mean, I know you said you'll sit in there for a bit, and then when it's done, it's run its course. You're done. You move on,
Yeah.
right?
mm.
Because you said you pick some things, and
But that, yeah,
from Guja's perspective though, he says he'll choose. I mean, some person will make a choice to identify with one thing, and then that's it, and
mm,
then they'll
Yeah.
move forward with
See.
that
yeah.
or
Hmm.
I think the
forever.
thing is
You
is
know.
that Dean, like I think we've explored this where you have the ability to meld yourself differently every day, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
And the way you explained it is actually so, um, in my mind, it's very graphic, right? Because I can understand exactly what you're saying. Like I can delve into this head first, like
Hmm.
into
Yeah.
a pool, and you can explore that. And it's so graphic to me that the way you explained it, that it makes perfect sense. Like today
Mm.
I can be yin and tomorrow I can follow yang. But
Yeah.
is it yin and yang? Is there G's or is there no? Okay, anyway. Um, but but
It's yin and
I
yang,
think
right?
there's G's.
It's yin and yang, isn't it? Or
hey,
is it yin yang? I can't
uh,
remember.
anyway,
Let's not get into
but
this now.
But that's the scary thing is because you have the ability to do that. Some people wake up every day and it's like I was watching Ted Lasso, right? And there's this one character, and every time he's alone, he just tells himself, "I am a strong and capable man," right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, he has to consistently, whatever he's doing, right? 80% of his life, he thinks a certain way. And then he tells himself, I'm a strong, capable man. And for this instance, however long it lasts, he's that, right? And then he falls back into the same old pattern of being like feeling weak, feeling, you know, incapable. And a lot of people have that base setting, whereas some of us are lucky enough to remind ourselves that I can be this today, and I can pick it and I can explore it, and I have the free will and emotional space to do that whenever I want to.
I hear you. I mean, but that's kind of why I said I agree and I disagree.
Mm,
Because like in terms of you and I, if we had to converse, we're not disagreeing with one another. We're actually talking
mm,
about two sides of the same coin, and that's how
yeah,
to use limitations.
yeah.
Whereas for some people, they do get stuck in it. They identify as one thing and they refuse to change. I mean, I look at if you look at like people potentially in our families, like maybe parents or uncles or aunties, they're very set in their ways.
Mm,
They identify something and they will not move. That is it. It must be done this way, otherwise it's wrong.
mm,
And like we get frustrated because we've understood that there's a million different ways to do the same thing and achieve either the same
mm,
result or better
mm,
with less effort. But because people identify a very specific way and they're terrified of leaving that identification because then their whole sense of self is questioned,
mm,
then they get stuck in that stuff.
mm. Totally
What do you
agree.
mean get stuck in the self-identification?
Yeah.
So
What?
yeah, like a very simple example would be, men must be this way. Men must be stoic. Men cannot tell
Oh,
their problems to people. Like
okay.
this is how it is to be a man. Then you like if I look at the men in my family, like there are certainly people like that. And their way of life absolutely tortures them. It breaks them. It puts impact on their family, like puts a lot of stress on their family.
Mm-hmm.
But that is how they identify. And they cannot change. They get completely stuck. They have chosen that way, and that is it. And to change would mean that they would lose their sense of self and their identity. So they don't. They'd rather sit and suffer.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, I get that, right? I mean,
Look, it's worked
it's
for them, right, throughout their lives.
I mean,
It
okay, so
has and
they,
it hasn't.
so
It's
okay,
kept them alive, but it's not
Yes.
made.
I,
It's
I
not
No,
no,
but
helped
I,
them.
that's
I
what I
wouldn't
mean.
say work, dude. I would not say work because
Hold on.
they function. They
No, I know what you
function.
mean. I know
Our
Yes,
what
I
you
also
mean
know
when
what
you
you.
said
I
work.
know.
It's
I
like,
also
our
know what you mean.
definition of worked, right, and their definition of worked is very different.
but
Their
that's why
mind,
they hold on to it because in their mind, work is their definition.
exactly.
No, no, we get why they do it,
Mm,
right?
mm,
But what it means is that they hold on to these definitions so tightly that they're incapable of seeing
mm.
the impact it actually has. It's blinkers.
But that's the important
Correct.
thing
Yes.
that we want to raise to listeners because we want to say, listen,
Yes.
does it just because it's worked, quote unquote, for a lot of people, doesn't mean one, it's going to work for you, but two, it's the only way.
Yeah.
There's, like you said, a million different ways to skin a cat, right?
Hmm.
Not that we should be skinning cats, but um,
I mean,
we, it's a pretty impossible task in the first place. But um,
or,
Yeah, have
the
you met cats?
yeah,
so
Bundles of energy.
cut your
so
arm off. But it's like a lot of people are like, it has to work because this is all I know. And the idea is to open people's eyes to say that you can be
there's a
different
different
if you
way.
want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about learned behaviors
Mm,
last week
Yeah.
as well, right? I mean, this could also be a learned behavior too, to
mm,
become a certain way.
mm,
Um, I know everyone. You both said like about your environments, about your surroundings, about your upbringing that you mentioned, Prash. So it's learned behavior as well. To
mm.
be either a dominant personality type or what's the other word? What's
Submissive.
the other?
Submissive.
Yes, submissive personality type based on what you've learned.
Mm,
And but like Prash said, we're here to tell you that there's balances that you can have, and it's not just one way of living. It's not it's not like that at all.
yes. And you
If you
pay
yeah,
five
if you're one
dollars
of those
ninety nine.
people, yeah, if you're one of those people that you're scared to change because it's all you know, just reframe the question and say, it's not all I have to know.
Mm,
There's a whole other world
yeah.
out there.
Hmm.
If you pay
Definitely
five
so.
dollars ninety nine, I'll show you how.
Sign up now.
There was another question that I had as well. That soft side um, can it be turned? Can it be turned to the dark side or corrupted?
Yeah, I think it
Mm,
definitely can.
yeah.
Like for the most part, people aren't innately, horrible or bad. I think
Mm-hmm.
that they get warped and twisted into a bad version.
And is there a redemption arc from that?
Yeah, I think they can be, but it's a bit of a long road back as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
You know.
Also, depending on how far you've gone down that hole, right?
how far you fall,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
yeah,
it's a
that's
thing
true.
of if it's like losing yourself and then finding yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah.
And what do you think then? Like, what kind of corruptors can can actually get to the softness of yourself, right? It has to be something really strong or really dark.
I think everybody has different triggers. Um, like what might remove softness from you might not
Mm.
remove softness from me, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I think a lot of your past history will is a telltale sign, because triggers are the main thing that will turn a frown upside down, um,
Mm-hmm.
or sorry, a smile upside down. But yeah, I feel like triggers are a big thing. A lot of people become very different after they've developed or have a trigger that will instantly change their um, emotional balance.
I like that you mentioned the emotional balance as well, and the triggers, because once again it's we talked about the yin and yang, which it
Mm,
is yin and then yang.
okay.
So it's a
Oh, so
G
one
only on
has a
one.
G.
Yeah, the second one is a G.
Mm.
Um,
Huh. That's not balance.
I was about to. Okay, yeah. So like one side of the seesaw becomes that imbalance,
Mm.
where it's like you're alluding to, you're loading it too much of heavy stuff,
Mm.
and the heavy stuff can be like the darkness that somehow comes from your environment, comes from the people you're mixing with, comes from the bad situations that inherently occur in someone's life as well.
Mm.
I think it's not only like you rightfully mentioned. There's triggers,
Mm.
like different things can trigger it, dude. Like breakups and whatever else
Mm.
can trigger you going down to that dark side.
Mm.
So I like that you mentioned, the triggers and the balance and um, things like that.
I mean, I don't know if I'd be answering the question
Mm.
with this, but it's the Batman and the Joker analogy, right?
Oh yeah.
In that something terrible can happen to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have a choice when that something terrible is about to happen to someone else, right?
Mm.
And there are only two choices. Either you prevent the terrible thing from happening or you allow the terrible thing to happen. And oddly enough, both of these things are rooted in empathy, but they come from within and from either internal or external empathy, or empathy at the beginning or empathy at the end, right? With Batman, he doesn't want bad things to happen to other people.
Mm.
So because he's felt the bad things, he tries to stop the bad things from happening to others, right? So that's his empathy. Is like, I don't want others to go through what I went through,
Mm.
because I mean, I know how I felt. I don't want others to feel that way. Whereas the Joker is like, I want everyone to experience what I experienced,
Mm.
and the end goal is actually for everyone to understand the pain, and then everyone would understand and have empathy. So they both actually practice empathy, but in two very different ways. And
Mm.
one is empathy from within, that's Batman, and the other one is empathy externally, and that's the Joker. And Batman's empathy is at the start, whereas Joker's empathy only comes at the end. And that's essentially what it is. It's the fork in the road.
Mm.
And the great philosophical question is, who's actually right?
When we're talking about softness, that's a prime example, essentially.
Yeah.
One is rooted in softness because it's pure strength trying to remove harm.
Yeah.
This is the way I understand what you've said mentally. And then the
Mm.
other way is lack of softness, right? And complete hardness. Um,
It's the
but
cruel to be kind.
yeah, but the
Yes.
empathy is the underlying result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Like I said, I don't know if it answers the question,
Yeah,
but it's certainly something to think about.
it
100%
really,
highlights the question.
yeah, yeah, it does, it does. Um, just to digress a lot. I don't know if you saw the one of the latest comic pain guys that explaining, or this could be a different, even on a different universe. This is not related to topic at all, everyone. It's completely related to just comics and geekiness. I recently saw a comic pain where it said that Alfred was the Joker, and all of his friends were the um, uh, each of the criminals at Gotham.
Oh, the Bats Rogues Gallery.
Yes, yes, yes.
Phew.
So Alfred's the bad guy.
He did it because he wanted to get Bruce, out of the bad space that he was in and give him a purpose in life. So he became the
Oh,
Joker. Yeah,
oh.
Pure love.
yeah. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, that's what I thought about. Sorry, digress completely. My bad.
No, no. Never apologize for comic book reference. I wholeheartedly encourage it.
Um, one of the last things, actually, this is the last kind of thing that I wanted to ask. Actually, what is the one opinion that you heard about being hard or being kind and soft that you heard about on the internet that you disagree with completely?
Oh,
I mean, the obvious one is that being soft and kind is weakness. That I disagree with completely. That's the obvious one.
you'll have to think about this one.
uh, I'm pretty sure you could think about, like, there's probably tons of references from our guy Tate, who's now in prison.
That's the thing. Oh, he's in prison. Holy shit! I didn't
They
know that.
finally arrested him and completely charged him now. Yeah.
I don't
But
even.
honestly, that was the individual that came to mind. I was just trying to like run through whatever I seen with him because he's got a lot of controversial takes on things and his view on what it is to be masculine and all that kind of stuff is things that I disagree with.
Yeah.
Um, but like I'm sure he's probably said stuff about kindness and letting people walk all over you and stuff, and he's misinterpreted the gentle aspect for weakness.
Hmm. Anything that comes to mind now, Prash?
So, okay, in the last couple of years, I've sort of rerouted a lot of my. It takes a long time, but I've rerouted a lot of my social media and stuff like that away from those types of thought processes. In
Yeah.
terms of, you have to be a hard person to get anywhere in life or whatever it is. And a lot of what I see now is kind things. And like Dean was saying, if you surround yourself with that kind of people and that kind of environment, it makes you more that way. And that's what I've tried to do because I just found that all of these people that are like, you need to like grit your teeth and you need to work super hard and you need to not take shit from anybody and apologies for the language, but um, you get a lot of those people online. Like what's that, Les Brown, right? He's
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
and the guy's it's really intelligent man, right? And but there's also that thing of I'm gonna outwork you and be the hardest man on the ground. And
Mm.
I appreciate those things in certain environments, but for me, I found with my life that the best way that I've done anything is through balance. Um, you need to have that side of yourself, but balance requires a high degree of softness, right? And that for me is something that I try to stem away from. Used to listen to those things where guys are like, you need to wake up every morning and just like go, you know, and and that was it. In my mind, it brought up a certain level of hardness. You just gotta shed all of the stuff nonsense from yesterday, pick it up, and whatever you're going through, just push through, right? And I tried to follow that for a while, but I found it was so exhausting to do that because it removed all softness. And maybe I approached it incorrectly, but I found that if you allow yourself the time and patience to be at peace with every step that you take, right, it gives you the ability to have more and more strength as you move forward. And I think that's a misconception. Uh, I don't know if I answered the question, but I found that that's a misconception that didn't work for me, or a conception that didn't work for me. In my mind, it's a misconception that you just need to pick up
Mm.
and keep moving. I found that if you take the time to be at peace with every movement that you make and every
Yeah.
forward step that you take, you'll find that you're a lot more comfortable as you go along. Um, but it takes a lot of uh, not energy, but um, self belief to do these things. You know?
Yeah, it does. It's a bit like a muscle in many ways. When
Yeah,
it's under strain and it's tense, it's rock hard.
yeah.
But when it's not under strain or under tension, it's kind of soft.
Mm,
You know, it can do both.
mm.
Sorry.
That's the other thing that I didn't mention. I feel like
What?
softness and ease of life come a little bit hand in hand, for me anyway.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think when you said just before I started laughing at
Because
that.
you're thinking about something else. That's why.
Yes, exactly, because what you were describing, Dean, potato. Um, um, damn. You. And now I forgot what Prash said.
Ease of life.
The ease of life,
Yes,
softness
so
and
the,
the ease of
evil,
life.
the ease of life thing. You mentioned when you're at, I think you mentioned something about peace with yourself, or just having that comfort within yourself. Um, like you attract that sense of goodness of life,
Hmm.
in my opinion. Like you're not fighting against anything. You're not fighting against
Yeah.
any side of yourself. Realistically, it's just it's just this peace within you and the calm within you, and
Hmm.
you just live a simple, eased life. That's
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Look, it's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not saying life is gonna be easy, right? That's not true. I mean, even
Oh
my
no, I
life
didn't say
is.
easy life. I
Yeah.
said eased
Ease
life,
of life.
as
No,
in
no, yeah. I'm just
yeah,
like
yeah,
I don't want to confuse
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah.
Life isn't.
Definitely
Even
not.
my life is extremely difficult at times, right? But if you take I've taken the approach that if if I don't find an easy path through this thing, right? Um,
Mm.
a lot of people are like the road less traveled, and I'm like, that's fine. The road less traveled works for some people, but it doesn't mean that the road less traveled has to be difficult. You know, it can also be easy.
I don't know about that. Like, it's less traveled for a reason. And also, if
Yeah.
it's less traveled, then the path is
So,
less forged. So you're putting down stuff that,
so,
wasn't
so
previously there.
so I know you
No,
mentioned Les Browngood, but he has a saying as well. If you do things that are easy, your life will be hard. But if you do things that are hard, your life will be easy. I mean,
Oh, is he the one that said that?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. I've heard it
yeah,
before.
so
yeah.
I don't want to confuse it. I don't want to say that I do easy things, right?
Mm.
I'm saying try to do hard things the easy way,
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
if that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
But
yes.
that
Now I
comes,
got you.
I don't know if it's a better way to say this is have comfort within yourself that even if you're doing hard things, right, be at peace with the fact that you are doing the best that you can at all times, right? And that's where that softness comes from. That softness comes with giving yourself the freedom to enjoy the hard things that you're doing and be at peace with doing them because that's the path of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Makes sense.
just because you're doing hard things doesn't mean they have to be hard. You can enjoy them.
That's true. Too often we don't enjoy that process,
Yeah.
but also the softness within us is for ourselves as well, right? It's not just for
Mm,
as an outward effect. It's
mm,
inward as well. Like when we're
100%.
when we're kind to ourselves, when we're gentle on ourselves, when we're um, show goodness to ourselves, when we're
mm,
happy for ourselves. It's not just about portraying that externally, and
mm,
giving off that good energy. It's about retaining that for yourself as well. Like primarily, softness from within is for you. It isn't for anyone else. Um,
Yeah, totally.
it's never about trying just manifesting that within yourself to become kind outwardly for whatever reason. And even the hard within yourself as well. It's not about being hard to show strength to the world. It's always about you and your journey and yourself first.
Hmm.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Strength shouldn't be something
Yeah,
used for demonstration purposes. Should be used for working purposes
Mm.
yeah,
to help
exactly,
you achieve something or get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
exactly. The only reason I said what I said earlier is because I found that life was becoming very difficult at some stages. And then I thought about it for a while and I'm like, why am I battling? You know, there's a certain
Mm.
side of myself that I'm ignoring when I take on these monster missions of
See,
whatever
you
it is
picked
I'm
up
meant to
something that was out of alignment.
do. Right. But if you look at it and look at it for what it is and say, listen, this is going to give me growth, right?
Mm.
And you look at it and say, if I'm gonna do this, I might as well try to enjoy it with all the things within me. And it gives you a certain level of strength once you start looking at things that way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit off topic, but yeah.
It's fine. I went off topic with the Batman, so but I mean, as I mentioned before, this is going to kick off a series of elements that exist within us, and this was just the first one.
Mm.
But that's pretty much everything that I had to converse about and introduce. Just your soft side, which I view as a strength. Um,
Same.
yeah. So just to close off, is there anything else that you would like to add? Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we close out?
Should call
No,
this
just
episode the Pillsbury Doughboy.
The Pillsbury Doughboy. This is not Ghostbusters here, bro.
true. Only thing I'd add is,
Yeah.
start being kind to yourself if you not already are, and
Mhm.
keep being kind to others.
There we go. Spread the kindness and yeah, be kind to others.
Kindness is
Grow,
life, man.
grow through what you
Mm.
go through.
Yes.
Yep.
But if that's it, thank you to all of our listeners for once again tuning in. We really appreciate you. We really hope you've had an amazing week, and the weekend is coming up, so we hope you have an amazing weekend as well. Until next time, this is us three signing off. Goodbye from us.
Later.
Bye.